welcome. Senorita, do you
Hi.
go by doctor now or?
No, that's the funny thing is that when you graduate with a Juris Doctorate, there's no doctor. It's just, oh, JD. That's it. Like, but people joke about it in law school, saying like, oh, you could call me doctor now, but that's not really a thing. It's weird. I don't know
You
why.
you went to school for it, right? I'm saying
Yeah, I don't know.
nothing
I
wrong with
never.
that.
I'm just like whatever. Now at this point, I'm a lawyer, so I just have my little Esquire at the end. So that's
I
what
was
I
about
care
to
about.
say that. Yeah, that's cute. Yep. Yep. Yeah, at least you walk away with that, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. I would just say I'm a doctor. I mean, I put in that work.
There's some people who
Yeah,
definitely do.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you put in that work. I heard what it's like, and it's not. It is not for everybody. I'll tell you that.
No.
There's
And
a
it's everything people say and more.
well, you're on the other side, right? So this is
Yes.
great news. All right.
Okay. Okay. Hey, I am Melinda Gomez. I am a graduate from Loyola Marymount University. I played basketball there. I then played overseas a couple of years, and then I went to law school. And now I am a criminal defense and post conviction attorney.
Hey, let's go. Let's go. Okay, so where'd you grow up, by the way?
I grew up in West Covina. I went to school at South Hills High School. Yeah, I mean West Covina, but also a lot of like East LA as well. Family, there and grandparents there, and then my family to this day. I'm sure you're familiar with the Placito Vera. Um, we grew up there. I am a fourth generation there. Yeah, so like my dad was a baby there. He was born there essentially. And so my siblings and I grew up there as well. And so yeah, a little bit of there, a little bit here, West Covina, and just SoCal girl.
That's
Yeah,
home right there. Placito
yeah,
Vera. It has a specific feel. You can't
yes.
describe it. Little feel. That's awesome. Okay, so West Covina, East Los, and Placito Vera.
Hmm.
That's nice. How did basketball come into your life?
I love this question because I always say that I was playing basketball in the womb. That's what I always say
Hey,
because both my parents played. They both were hoopers. How they actually started playing, I don't actually know. I've never asked them that question before. But they were taller, too. But the reason why I say I played in the womb is because my mom tells a story about how when she was pregnant with me, she was playing. Like she was just having like playing pickup games or whatever.
mm,
She was like, and I was like, probably like 3 or 4 months pregnant with you. She's like, and then I fell, just like playing normally. And then I kind of was like, oh, yeah, maybe I should stop playing for this baby now. And so that's why I always joke and say, man, I've been playing since my mom's womb.
that's
So
dope.
yeah, it's something I grew up doing. But found a passion for it when I was really, really, really young. Like I remember setting out cones and doing my dribbling and just like it's something I've always loved.
You were different then, or maybe it was just a different generation. Because I coach soccer, and most of the cats don't want to do that extra work on the side, which
It's
makes
a
it
different
better.
generation. A
Yeah,
100%. It's
it
a
make,
100% a different generation.
most of them just show up and they don't even warm up right. So hence the reason why
Hmm.
there's a lot of injuries nowadays. Coach my back,
Yeah.
coach my groin, coach my hamstring. They ask more questions about stretching than drills. So I'm like, oh,
It's definitely a different generation. When I came back from playing overseas, I actually coached. How I fell into this, I still don't really know. I coached a boys' JV team at my old high school. And yeah, they were so just like okay with just being on the team. It's like, oh yeah, I'm cool because like I made the boys JV team. And like I was like, no, you guys like, come on, we want to win. What is this? But
it,
it's definitely, yeah,
it's
it's
more of
a
an
whole different
activity
generation.
today.
Yeah, well, I think like for a lot of kids, there's a different sense of just kind of like entitlement. And I think it's a lot has to do with social media
Mm,
because they're growing up seeing all of these images where people have these things. but they don't have the filters like we do as adults because we didn't grow up with that stuff to be like, oh, that's just a photo or that's not real. That's not how their everyday life goes. But for I feel like younger kids, they look at that and like, oh, that's how you get it, just like that. You don't have to do the work. You don't have to do a lot of. They don't see everything that goes into that. I think that to me, that's what I find.
They put on the new Jays, right? And they think all of a sudden they got it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just talking to a coach the other day, and we're gonna get back to your basketball thing. Coach the other day about what it was like back in the day playing soccer, right? And I'm sure it was pretty similar with basketball with the programs, right? Today, I'm sure there's endless programs for people of all types of ages and skills, right? So nowadays, we got about 9 to 10 teams on the west side, which is Santa Monica, Culver City, Venice area, right? Back in the day, there was only 2 teams. So
Uh huh.
you had to be that good. Otherwise, you couldn't walk around saying, I play club soccer or I play varsity, right?
Hmm.
There was so much talent and it was more cutthroat. So that is very interesting. So before overseas, what made you stick to basketball? What made you choose basketball? I know your parents had it, which is a huge head start, but what else?
Yeah. I just loved it. I've always loved it. And my parents were so great at exposing us to different things. So
Hmm.
even growing up, I played like soccer, I just remember I was fast and could kick the ball. I wasn't very skilled, but like I was that age where like I was good just because I was faster than
Yeah.
everybody. Um, I played soccer, I played softball, and then it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I played volleyball as well. But volleyball and basketball were the ones that stuck when I was in high school.
Mm.
Um, and I just basketball was always it for me. I just always knew I wanted to play that. I even had like scholarship offers to play volleyball and stuff, and I just always wanted to play ball. It was just that was it for me. Um, yeah, I still love it. Like I still play just for fun.
Yeah, you never lose the passion for it, right? That's just
Yeah.
perspective of how you view it as a career changes. That's the only thing that changes, but I'm sure the love and the passion for it is still there. Overseas, I have to hear about overseas.
Oh man, it was great. It was such a great experience. I got to go with one of my teammates and my best friends, Alexis Love, who you know,
Mhm.
um, and it was awesome. I couldn't have asked for anything more. Um, yeah, just being able to go over there because we were in Spain, so it helps to know the language and to even though they spoke Catalan. So it was a little
Catalan,
different,
but
but
it was in
yeah.
Barcelona or
Mhm.
Catalunya.
Mhm. Yeah. And so yeah, now it's Catalunya because yeah, different now.
Mhm.
Because when we were there, it wasn't. They were still trying to get their like independence while we were there.
Mhm.
Um, but no, I mean it was awesome. It was such a fun experience. Up until, of course, my whole stories is filled with just setbacks. Um, up until I tore my ACL over there. Um,
Oh,
yeah, but I think that was kind of, and it's crazy because I literally had no like injuries really my whole career until then. And it wasn't just an injury, that was like a big time injury, right? And I don't know, I almost feel like that was kind of God's way of also pushing me to step out of basketball because I know that I would have just continued to play forever until the wheels fell off. Um, because I always had the plan of playing overseas a couple years and then going to law school. But now that I was there and enjoying it as much as I was, I don't know if I would have really stepped away from it.
I love Barcelona. I love
It's
the
so great.
culture. I love everything. Were you in Barcelona? Because I keep assuming that you were in Barcelona.
No, yeah, we were very close to Barca. We were like I think like an hour train ride away, so we were there frequently.
Which town or city?
We're in a little tiny town called Tortera.
Tortera
Yeah.
with the T, like tortilla, tortera.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up. Yeah, I was out
Tiny,
there.
tiny, tiny. Yeah.
Nah, just the vibes out there are completely different. I almost so I went in 2016. My boy told me he was moving back to LA. He was living out there, and he told me, "Hey, You always said you wanted to come out here and explore. And I would say that because but I've never been to Europe, right? So I'm like, yeah, 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 I'll go one day. I'll go one day, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm coming back. I'm coming back in the next 3 months. So whatever intentions you had, you better do them
You
now.
better make it happen.
I was like, what do I do? How do I do it? Because when you think of a vacation, you think of the best Airbnb, or you think of the best car rental, you think of the best experience. Sometimes it's just picking your
Uh-huh.
shit up and just leaving. And
Yes,
I
I
had
agree.
the most phenomenal experience. I stayed in
That's
a
awesome.
hostel. I went to go watch a Barcelona Madrid game, which you already know is
Oh,
huge,
you did? See, we
huge.
never got the chance to do that because of our schedule.
Mm,
That is my only regret is we never got to go to a game.
wow,
We always say, I'm like, man, I wish we had a day off. I wish we could go. I wish we could go, and we were never able to because of our schedule.
you guys are busy. Well, you know what?
Yeah,
To your defense, you were living a dream. I would love
yeah,
to say I played overseas. I would love to say that. You know, it's just an experience that I always, even if it's not soccer related, like Ireland, right? Anthony, he's doing his thing out
yeah,
there in Benfica, right? I just love to see people prosper and see, because I'm that curious guy. Like, what is it like? How's the atmosphere, right? What is there to do out there, right?
yeah.
So yeah, Barcelona, man. I almost tore my ticket on God. I almost tore my
Really.
ticket and stayed out there. So back to you. Back to you. Okay, so you went overseas. You got injured, right?
Yeah.
ACL. What caused the injury?
I think what happened is that so I was playing one day and I kind of tweaked my knee, and I think I probably tore my meniscus. I think. I don't know. And so, everything's just different. Even the medical stuff, and like they really didn't speak Castellano. It was mostly like Catalan, so that was kind of difficult and stuff. And then I kind of was doing better, and all that. And my coach was really pressuring me to play, to play, to play, to play, because we had playoffs coming, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like, okay. Even though in my heart I knew like I don't think I'm ready for this,
Mm,
I played. And yeah, I mean the same way most most ACLs happen. I just was like playing defense or something, like nothing super intense. And you just feel like the pop, and I knew. I was like, man, that's it. It was bad. Yeah, it was bad.
those
But then
important.
my brothers came and got me. Um, they literally flew over there and like came and picked me up and stuff. And yeah,
Man, that's
so
intense.
I don't know, you roll with it.
You have to. You have to. You can't stay stagnant. You
Yeah,
gotta.
you have to. I mean, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Plus,
It was definitely heartbreaking, but it was you roll with it.
hmm and the fact that you're overseas, you're not in like Santa Barbara or let's say San Diego distance of commuting. You're more like, okay, I got to do something now, right? I can't just,
Yeah,
you know, live off of
yeah,
whatever they're paying me. I got to figure out what's the next steps. What are my next expenses, right? So
yeah.
if
And I think too, even just really like I always say that your perspective is everything. It's like on one hand you can feel everything that you are. I feel like anybody in that situation would feel, just like this feeling of defeat and this feeling of just like, man, like, dude, like I just had it and now it's gone pretty much, like why me, why this, all this stuff. But then on the other hand, you also have this perspective of like, man, like, dog, I have the opportunity to even be injured. Like, that's wild. And I'm overseas, like doing something that I love on in a place that I've never could have dreamed living. Like,
Mhm.
what the heck? Like, I have had this opportunity. This is dope. So to me, it's always about really your perspective. Mindset is
Perspective,
everything.
perspective. Huge fan of Maya Angelou. I'm always hyping her up, but she said something along the lines that like, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change the way you think,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And you just keep flowing like water. That's it. What made you? Because there's been injuries with sports where people get injured and they come back. Right? I've seen
Uh
some disgusting injuries where I'm like, yo, this
huh.
guy's done.
Yeah.
This guy's done. The foot is facing the opposite way. You're like, oof, no way.
Mhm.
There's no way
Mhm.
he's coming back. And they come back. What made you? Well, first of all, what can you advise to people who have gone through that injury that still want to keep playing?
Go for it. I say go for it. Do it.
Mhm.
Be diligent. with your rehab, but also be patient with yourself, and realize that it's a process. I think, especially as athletes, we are very like, okay, when we want something to happen, we're used to going and getting whatever we want because we do the work to make it happen.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I think with injuries, you have to scale that back a little bit and really realize, like, all right, it's a process. As much as my mind thinks I can go and wants to go, my body still has to have some time to catch up.
Is that
Um,
connection? Hmm.
you
Mind,
know what I mean?
body.
Because I think when it comes to athletes, like, it's not the mental aspect that people have problems with. It's the body part where we're like, okay, I'm ready, and it's like, chill out a little bit. Be patient. So that would definitely be my advice. Because even with me, like when I was rehabbing and stuff, I wanted to get back playing, even though I knew I wasn't going to be playing like at that level anymore. Like I already knew I was going to try to go to law school and all that stuff. Um, but it doesn't, just like we were saying, your love never dies. You know what I mean? So it's like I still wanted to get out there and play and do other things that I'm used to doing. So yeah, that's definitely my advice. Just be patient and trust the process.
I feel that. I've been through some injuries, and that's the part. The hardest part is growing up when you're not ready to grow up. Asking yourself that question of like, is it time to consider different avenues? That's a very tough question, and I
Yeah.
have been fortunate to train with my parents are from Guatemala, so I trained with the national team over there, and that was like one of my last chances over there, and
Hmm.
it's always that. And I had one more year of LMU, so I'm like, should I go back to LMU and finish what I started? Lord knows I've been there at it for a minute because I was a community college student for 25 years. No, I'm kidding, for 3 years. So I'm like, yo, you got to finish this, man. You can't just
Yeah.
stay pausing on this, right? So that's always a tough conversation to have. That's why I wanted to ask you, because there's some players that are 10 times more resilient than others, and they still want to keep doing it, right? So with you,
Yeah.
with your ACL injury, you knew that it was time for specific reasons. What made you, aside from being injured, right? Because injuries are common in sports. What made you say, "Hey, it's time to steer the boat this direction"?
You know, unfortunately, it's because I'm a woman. And I've always known that, and I think I've kind of always been blessed with like a hindsight kind of vision. And I've always known that there's just not money for women in sports. There is now, there's more now.
Mm,
Um, like literally within like the last summer, like playing women's basketball at the WNBA level, just the different like perks and things that they have now, but that didn't exist then.
mm,
Um, and all of the money is overseas. That's why WNBA players, they literally play year round. They don't have the privileges of like NBA players of, oh, we play our season here and then we have off time, and the summer we go, we party, we hang out, and then we start to get back for a season. They
mm,
are literally playing year round. Um, and I've always known that I've always wanted to get married and to have a family, and I always knew that would be very, very difficult if I lived overseas. And so I kind of always knew I wanted to go to law school, but I always wanted that experience of playing overseas. So I always had like a 5 year cap, 2 year cap, something like that. And so then when I played and I got injured, I was already kind of in that mindset of like, oh man, I don't know if maybe I do just want to do that overseas thing and figure out the rest of my life with family and blah, blah, blah. But then when I got injured, that's why I say I think it was kind of like God saying, like, okay, remember what you wanted or what you planned.
your main
Um,
goal was. Hmm.
yeah. And so that was it for me. That's why it was kind of like, okay, here we go, law school. It's time, you know. So so yeah.
Before we get to law school, right, which is that's whenever I hear someone say I'm a lawyer, it's like, yo, I want to, buy you a drink, man, because
Oh my
that
god.
I've heard, you
And we
know,
all need it.
yeah, yeah. I
I don't
forget
think
the
there's
joke.
any that would turn it down either.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody be like, "What are you waiting for? Where were you this whole time, man?" So, before the law thing, I got completely sidetracked. Women and inequality in sports, right? What did you say has changed since?
I don't know the exact what they kind of came up with, but they came up with a package for the WNBA players that they make, I think, at least, I want to say it's like 100
Mm,
a season. They have like maternity leave, they have just different like things that they didn't have before, whether that be the maternity leave or whether that be the healthcare, which I'm pretty sure they all had to have healthcare before, but
mm,
just even just the pay amount of pay that they would make. Now there's like a set, and I think it's a good amount of money. I think I want to say it's either just under six figures or it's six figures, because before women were making, some of them were making. I had friends who were playing for 50,000, 40,000, like, and you do it because you love it, and you can make it work. And then if you go overseas and then play another season, then it's like, okay, well, if I have 40 here and 40 here, then now I have 80. So that's doable. That's a good income. Like,
wow.
yeah, it's completely different.
It's become more of a hustle than a passion. It's become more of a do or die. How do I stay afloat? And that is not fair.
Yeah, it
That,
it there definitely is no question for the women who play sports at a high level that they you have to love it. You have to, because if not, it's not going to be worth it.
mhm.
It's
Same.
not, because you're away from your family. It's like having to be overseas. You miss a lot of things. I mean, even just the little bit of time that I was gone, I missed so much with my family. You
Mhm.
know, so to do that year in and year out, and then to kind of be like, oh, I only made this much, like, you have to love it.
Mm. It takes a lot, which questions a lot of people because it's the same thing with soccer. It's come a long way, and
Hmm.
people were getting paid about a couple of hundred a month. They were given like a place to stay and a meal plan and what have you. It was pretty much like being in college again, but they
Yeah,
were scraping by. As you could imagine, soccer overseas is huge. Over here, it's still like growing, but
yeah,
women, it's just like the same thing with the U.S. men's national team. They've been fighting
yes,
about
yes.
equal pay, and I always ask myself, yes, 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 yes. I know that sports and men go together like peanut butter and jelly, but what about women? What? How can we? What needs to change in order for people to go watch sports like soccer games for women or soccer games? I mean, basketball games for women, right? How can the tickets increase? Because I know that most people see it as a business opportunity, right?
Hmm.
So the investors, if you will. So what do you think is something different that could change, like you just said, maternity leave, and what else do you think is missing in order to get that more on the map?
For people to view it and like want to be a part of it and just be fans of it.
Buy jerseys, yeah.
Yeah. That's such a hard question. But, and I hate having to say this, but I think something that would really help is men getting behind it, because men are always the biggest kind of, I guess, naysayers when it comes to women's sports. Like, even in your day to day life of, like, you see like a girl who plays basketball or whatever on the social media platform and has a lot of followers or whatever, and they'll still be the guys on there that are talking and just talking crazy. Will be about WNBA player, and it'll be like your average Joe who it's like, dude, you're not even getting picked up at 24-hour fitness. Like, what makes you think you can hang with like this caliber of a player just because she's a woman?
Mhm.
Um, but I think what help no, it's I mean it's true, but I think what helps is when we have these NBA players who are very respected and who are very what is it called? Very skilled, and they're in the NBA and stuff. Say, no, dude, like these women are legit. So then it kind of allows people to follow and be like, oh man, if LeBron James is saying like they're it, then like, all right, I guess I could try it out.
Mhm.
So I think that's one thing that actually really, really helps and really pushes that envelope.
It is tough because we even me, right, have been waiting to see that. Is it the next sneaker? Is it voicing your opinion? It's a number of things. And yes, men backing it up, right? And big names, not just your average names, like you just said, LeBron, Curry, right? People who are recognized in social media because that's what dominates everything today.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
unfortunate, but because it's still, it doesn't mean that, but the average person still has that ability and still has that, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like they also still have to get involved too. So like somebody like you, everybody else also has to be willing to buy those sneakers, be willing to buy that jersey, or just be willing to be like, no, dude, like this is it.
Hmm.
Um, so it takes that bigger platform, but it also takes everybody else willing to say, yeah, dude, like let's get on board.
Mm, I feel that. I feel that. That's a never-ending topic. Maybe that should be something we talk about next time because that could be something that could be stretched
Yeah, that's like a
out.
step. That's a whole separate.
Yo,
Yeah.
that we could be going at it for days and be like, all right, I'll call you
Yes.
tomorrow. We're gonna go back at it, but just for the sake of time, law school and wait, in between law school and I'm so sorry to hear that, right? Because it time doesn't time heals, but it doesn't heal completely, right?
Yeah.
It's like an injury. You come back, but you're never the same, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and so my condolences to your dad. He passed away during this time, right? Or was it before you went
It
overseas?
was no, it was before I went overseas. Actually, I was in college still. Um, so he got diagnosed when I was a sophomore, and then literally within 1 year, he passed away when I was a junior. Like even like the same month that my parents told us and everything. Like it was very quick. Very quick.
Wow. I'm sure he meant a lot, and you use that, I'm sure, to tackle other obstacles down the road. You use that as an indicator, like the old man is looking. I bet, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. And I think just so it goes back to even like that mindset that we were talking about of just like, man, I think about the dad that he was to us and just like extraordinary. I mean, in so many ways,
Hmm.
even just the way that he treated my mom and what that did for us, when it comes to relationships and what we look for, what we want in our expectations. Um, but you definitely have on one side of like, man, my God, like, okay, like we thought that he was, you were going to take care of this. We thought that you were going to heal him. We were trusting for it. We were praying for it. We were all of these different things, and it didn't happen. Like,
Mm.
what happened? But then on the other hand, we also have the perspective of like, man, like I had a dad for one who was there, and not just that, but I had an amazing dad.
Mm.
And so it's always these perspectives, right? But like, obviously, there's still the mourning. There's still, and that never, grief never goes away. I'm realizing.
Mm.
Um, it's like, and I always say that, like love and grief are the same thing. You never stop grieving and you never stop loving. It doesn't go away. It's just something that you continue to kind of live with,
Mhm.
and you just kind of go on.
Exactly. I'm sure that's when you lose someone, anybody, right? Like I told you earlier this morning that I lost one of my closest friends due to an
Yeah,
overdose. I'm not embarrassed to admit that I lost myself for a bit, right? And it took me a while
yeah,
to not feel guilty, because in my opinion, I felt like I could have done more as a friend, check up on him. At that time, I was still trying to play soccer, trying to be a student. I was working full time, so it was tough. I didn't know how and all I wanted to do is press rewind. It's so like I don't know how to put it in a way, but it's so unrealistic because y- for me to think that is it was just a deep desire, but I had to get over the fact that this is how life works in this world, right? It may work different in another world, but in this world, the sooner you could be resilient and move forward, the more you will advance in life. And it really did take a while to. I didn't want to accept that. So.
but I think it's a balance. It definitely is, because I was definitely on the opposite side of that, of just very like, okay, like, well, move on, like, here we go, you know, and like not really taking the time to shift through a lot of those emotions that I had, or really taking the time to really mourn, or to kind of just like grapple with all of these things that came with his passing. Um, until literally years later, like I'm talking like this last year, like during the pandemic, of really realizing like, oh man, like this isn't something I really ever faced. So it's funny, I was definitely on the opposite side of what you just expressed you went through. So there's no one way to mourn. I feel like there's no one way to deal with somebody's passing. Like there's no book for it.
No, yeah. When someone says get over it or you got to move forward, I'm like, yo, you you can't tell him or her what to do. If they need
Yeah,
time, they need time. Like you don't have a right to do that, you know? You're not the one that's in that position for you to say move forward unless it's coming from a very good place in you, within you, right?
yeah.
I just lost a friend of mine and I'm sure you heard about it. It's been in the news. I went to high school with her, but she got hit by a 17-year-old. Yeah,
That's your friend?
yes, yes, Monique.
Wow. Oh, I'm so
She
sorry.
and you know, I when I saw it on the news, I'm like, wow, I very much feel sorry for that person and their close ones, right? I
Yeah,
was I was like, Jesus, what was this kid thinking? You know, going 100 and supposedly, right? There, you know, the dad is
yeah,
hire the best attorneys that could possibly get this kid probation and possibly a couple of months in jail, maybe a couple of years. And that's a sad truth, right? You know, you get a good attorney, and I don't want to get into that. I don't want you to
I
think,
was gonna say don't go there
no,
because
no, no,
that's
no.
I'll,
But,
I'll be
but
here for a whole day.
yeah. But what I'm trying to say is when I saw her face, I was like, whoa, oh no, she was the sweetest, and it's not to like toot her horn or anything, but
Yeah,
she had the best vibes. Everybody loved her. Everybody loved her, and she had like the biggest heart in the world. Like there was no way you could hate her. Not one way you could hate her. Her smile, everything, the way she talked to you. And when I saw her face, even though it's been shit since high school, right? It's been a while.
yeah,
It hit me. So yeah, I could only imagine what the parents are going through, and whew, but it's tough. It's tough. So
yeah. No, life is so fleeting, and we.
if you could help people, right? And there's no exact definition, but if you could help people who are going experiencing that grief, what are some steps that you did that helped you, help you, take the
Right.
next step forward in life?
Deal.
Cope.
That's just a tough question. I think I think it kind of goes back to what we were saying about how there's no one right way to grieve, um, and everybody has their own way. So whatever feels right or whatever they think is right, like do that. I mean, obviously, aside from doing something extreme or hurting somebody else, um, but do that. You know, for me, it was I've always loved to write, so for me, it was writing. Um, for me, sometimes it was just playing basketball, um, doing something that we did together, or just yeah. I mean, it's there's no right way. There's really no right way, and my way, what I did, may not work for somebody else. Um, but yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question for me. That's a tough one.
I feel it doesn't have a specific answer, but I feel that sharing some key points, like you just said, staying busy, doing things you like to do, those are some common things that I've heard, and it doesn't resolve it, right? But it just helps you not
Yeah,
think about it that much, and maybe when you do
and
think about it in a good mood, you think about it in a different perspective, you know.
yeah, and I think it hits people differently at different times. Like for some people, the holidays are particularly difficult
Mm.
or whatever. But for me, it's never those big things. It's always the little things for me that are always more difficult, I guess. Um,
Mm.
or sometimes it'll just be a conversation or something that happened that I'm like, man, I would have loved to know what you thought about this, or I would have loved to talk to you about this. Um,
Mm,
it's never really like those huge, for me, it's never really those huge things. It's not like a Christmas or Father's Day. It's, it's the small things for me.
absolutely. Whew, that's another that's another topic that I really enjoyed talking about because it's delicate, right?
Yeah.
And you have 1 million questions.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
yeah, every day is a different question. So I imagine that that helped you with law school and taking the next steps after your injury, going overseas because this happened at LMU during college, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
going overseas and then choosing law school. So you knew, did you consider law school while you were playing basketball overseas, or is that something that happened completely after? Were you always
No,
passionate? Oh, what?
I knew I wanted to go to law school when I was at LMU, actually. Yeah, because so my dad was actually an investigator for the DA's office. And it's kind of funny, like when you look back, you realize how much you just didn't know about anything. Like I remember being in high school and I always wanted to be an English teacher. I really always enjoyed teaching. I always wanted to do something that was really impactful. And my mom used to tell me, like, Mika, I think you're going to be a lawyer. And I'd be like, no, I'm not going to do that. That sounds ridiculous. I remember kind of like thinking that and kind of saying like, no way, mommy, I'm not going to be a lawyer. Never. She'd be like, no, I think you're going to be one. And I'm like, okay. And then when I was in school, at LMU, I was like, okay, want to teach, but then I kind of also felt this like pull of like, and not to say I'm beyond a teacher or anything like that, but I kind of felt this kind of like, is that it? Is that all I have? Is I'm going to be a teacher? Like, is that where I want to tap out at? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I would really, really enjoy it, but then I would probably get bored after like 5 years, like, is that the end of my capacity type of thing?
Mhm.
And so then I kind of got this idea of law school and just how like while I could teach, and then I opened the door for like all of these different things. And I knew so little just about the law really, or in how like it's literally in everything that we do. Um, and then my dad was an investigator for the DA's office, and I don't even exactly remember how it happened or what, but I interned for the LA DA's office at the LAX branch, right there, right by school. I think it was going into my sophomore year. Yeah. And that's when I realized like this is what I want to do.
Mm.
And I took a couple of like law classes at LMU. Um, and yeah, that was it for me. I knew like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do.
I love that in so many levels because, like I mentioned earlier, people struggle with who am I? What am I meant to do? I was looking at the picture of your mom recently, and just the smile, the joy that you guys had,
Yeah.
that has no price. That all that accomplishments, especially
Yeah,
all the stuff you've been through, but most importantly, the attempts.
yeah, it's funny. I always joke and say that even the day of my graduation, I know that she was very excited and proud because my parents didn't drink alcohol. Like they didn't. Um,
Why is that?
I think number one, because my dad's dad was an alcoholic.
Oof.
And so, yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff that just comes with, man, we could do 1,000 podcasts. Um, but yeah, no, and so that it really speaks to just, my dad and the type of man and father that he was, that it was really about breaking that, generational curse for us. And he was like, this isn't going to be my family. This isn't going to be us. Um, and plus, I don't think they really ever even just had the taste for it. And so we just never had it. It wasn't like a thing that I was like, oh, it's not allowed, but we just never had it. Like,
Mm.
it just wasn't a thing. But then, as we got older and stuff, we'd have our wines and our, stuff like that. And so I always say that that's how I knew my mom was super excited and was so proud, because at my graduation, because I was in Oregon, my siblings came up and my mom came up and we got this big Airbnb house. Um, and she was drinking a little bit of her vino, like this much, and like I was like, okay, mama.
It probably hit
One of
good.
the only
If you
times,
don't,
yeah,
yeah, if you're not a drinker, it probably hits nice. It does a job.
yeah, yeah. I don't even think she finished it, but just
Oh
to
my
see
God.
her holding it and take a sip was like, okay,
Okay, I see you. I see you. Is that one
yeah,
exception? It must have been a
yeah,
big day. It was a big day.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about your attempts with passing school.
Yeah, yeah. And it was with passing the bar. So I'm sure it's funny because like a lot of people know it, but then some people don't know it.
Mm.
Where you go through law school, and I mean, like your first year is very cutthroat, where they literally are weeding out the class, and you have to make it within a certain curve. Otherwise, if your GPA falls between a certain or like underneath a certain grade point average, I guess, they will cut you from your first year.
Mm.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
What did
funny. I don't,
you get?
I,
Was it a
but that
2.5, I think, or was it 2.6?
I think, and that's the crazy part is that it's not necessarily a GPA. It is just don't be the slowest runner. So if you have a super smart class that comes in
Hmm.
and you guys all get, like pretty good grade point average, like, but you're at the bottom still, yeah, peace.
Wow.
Like, it's cutthroat. It's very cutthroat. Like in some schools are different where it is between a certain GPA or whatever, but yeah, it's rough. Um, so then from there, you go through all of your 3 years, you graduate, but then when you graduate, you're not just a lawyer, unfortunately. You have to take and pass what's called the bar exam. And as most people know, like California really is the most difficult one out of all of the states. Um, and so I didn't pass it the first time.
Why is that,
I
Melinda? Is
Why
it
is it the
because it's a
hardest?
big state? Is there a lot of competition, or because I hear the
Why they
pass
make
rate
it
is
the most
very low?
It's very low. Why they make it the most difficult, I don't really know. But like just to kind of put it in perspective, um, we get tested on, so it's like other states you'll get tested on like the federal laws, right? But then in California, there's certain subjects where you'll get tested on the federal law and the California law. And you won't know which one it is. They'll tell you, like, answer according to California, answer according to federal, or answer according to both. Like, tell us the differences. And so there's definitely more detail that you have to know for California. I think that's what makes it so difficult. With the other states, you can definitely more understand it from like a picture point of view as opposed to really having to know the details. And our essays are longer. So our essays are an hour, and in other states, they're 30 minutes. So that just kind of speaks to the detail that you have to know and understand a certain specific subject.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Typing an essay is hell, right?
it is. It's horrible. Oh my
Writing an
gosh. And then
essay.
after you're done, you're like, oh my God, I need a shower. Like, what the heck? What just happened?
You guys get to type it out, or is it written? Everything's written, right?
No, so you can choose. But really, because again, it's on a curve, type. You can't type as quickly, or I'm sorry, you can't possibly handwrite as quickly as you can type. So even in law school with our exams, like you kind of are forced to type. You have to.
Mhm.
And it just makes more sense too, so that if you want to go back and kind of add something or change something, you just put your cursor and click in there as opposed to like, how are you going to do it on paper? You know what I mean? Um, so
Mhm.
yeah, most of the time people type. Yeah.
Still,
So
typing an essay, what I was trying to get at, and having a 2 week or a 3 week span is already like, damn. Okay, I gotta put this together. Doing it on the spot under pressure,
It's not
and
fun.
knowing that, like I said, under pressure because you have a time clicking or
Yeah, it's
ticking.
not fun, and you don't know what your question is gonna be.
Sheesh.
So that's the harder part. Because there's literally, I mean, when you study, you're studying to prepare for everything.
Hmm.
So when you actually take the exam, there's things that you don't even cover. There's a lot, most of the things you don't even talk about.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah,
And you
yeah.
got the
It's
essay and you have multiple choice, is that?
and there's the multiple choice. Yeah, which is probably the most difficult part. Yeah, it's
Ooh.
rough. It's rough. So the first time when I took it, I was like, well, damn, I failed.
At least you kept it 100. You're like, all right.
I knew, like, because I was like, there's no way. Like, I was so unprepared for that. Like, what just happened?
Mm,
Um, it really is as difficult as they say it is, type of thing. I kept saying, like, yeah, I failed. And then my family and friends would say, like, you don't know and stuff. But I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, no. So I did it. And then, so you take it in July, generally, like right after, you graduate. And this is like the rough part that people don't really realize is that so you graduate and then you're studying for like 2, 3 months,
mhm.
but you're not working. So you're not making money. You are literally studying. When people say, like, yeah, I studied for 12, 14 hours a day, they're not exaggerating. That's a legit thing. Um, so you're not making money, you're studying, and then you have to wait 6 months to get your results. And so you're in this really just awkward position of like, yay, I have a Juris Doctorate, but nobody wants to hire me because they think that I'm just going to leave to be a lawyer. But then law firms don't want to hire me because I'm not a lawyer yet. So you're like, okay, Home Depot doesn't even want to hire me, like literally. So what am I doing? Um, it's rough. It's such a tough, like in between time. And yeah, it sucks because there's that those whole like I think it's like 6 months before you get your results back. And then so then like me, I didn't pass, right? And so then I had to then take the exam in February. So this was February of last year. Um,
20.
and
And
20,
you
yeah,
did it in
February
19
2020.
because 20 was a blur. Okay.
Yeah, so 2020. And I took the exam. I honestly thought I passed. Like I learned so much. I learned so much because that's the first thing that I realized, like for the first time around, that the program or whatever that I used was just way too overwhelming. Way too overwhelming. Where it's like, okay, I did 12 hours. I studied 12 hours today, but I can't really tell you what I learned. So that's a problem. Like I'm going through this checklist and trying to keep up and stuff, but I don't really know what I've learned. So yeah, that's bad. And you're trying to like, they're like, well, trust the process. So you're trying to trust the process, but then you're also like internally like, I'm not learning. I'm not learning. Trusting the process. I'm not learning. Then you're like, oh, well, the exam's next week. So, okay, here we go. And then you take the exam and you're like, well, yeah, I should have trusted myself because I didn't learn anything. Um, and so then, yeah, that was my first time. So then the second time that I
Is
took
there a
it,
fee to that?
I felt like, what's that?
For the test, is there a fee? Do you have to pay to take it again?
I skipped over that whole part. Yes. So without set aside the part that you are not working and having to study, just to sit generally will cost about $1,000 just for
Oh,
the exam. It's close
wow.
to $1,000. But then nobody really is going to go and take it without some type of study aids or whatever. Most of the time, starting, it's about $3,000 for that. So here is this whole process where you're not really working, you're like trying to study. So there's just a lot of pressure of like, man, I need to get through this gate so that I can move forward. Um, and then of course within like your 6 months of graduating come your law school loans. So like it's a lot. It's definitely a lot for some people. Well, for everybody, but like some people don't know how to deal with it, I guess. Um,
That's about 200 from what I heard or more. Depending on the loans and the interest rates.
Yes, that is correct. It's about 200.
Mm.
Yep. Yeah, it's a lot.
I mean,
It's a lot,
opportunities are endless, right? But
but
we
you have to pay
gonna go
for
into
it.
that. Yeah. Because there's jobs that I was seeing someone that you know she did not want to accept a job that paid 70 or 80, and I completely understood that because she went through hell and back, right, to get paid off for that role. But in my mind, with the little that I knew, I was like, in life sometimes you got to have stepping stones, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And the fact that you want to live this life, which means that your rent is not you don't want an average apartment. You want this type of apartment that
Yeah.
requires this type of income, right? You want this type of life. And every woman and man deserves to have the life that they want to have, right? As long as it makes sense. I had people who buy Mercedes Benz in high school or BMWs, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what do you do? I work
Yeah.
at Target, bro. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to steer you away from having that Benzo, my dude. But
Yeah.
you work at Target.
Longevity.
You work
Yeah.
at Target, like you got to pick up a side hustle or something, bro. Like it doesn't add up, right? So what I was trying to tell her or convince her, and I didn't know too much. That was my ignorance. Was like, take this job, pay off a couple of bills, pay off your rent, right? You want this 2,000 plus or $2,800 apartment, take this job for now and then move up, right? What is your experience of that, right? Because I'm sure they shoot you in the foot and try to aim low with that.
Yeah, man. Well, see, for me, like, and again, here goes another podcast. Um,
And please tell me what you think of what I just said, because I need you to tell me that I'm wrong so that I'll be like, okay, you know what? This is not how it works, right?
no, I mean, and that's why I say it's another podcast because for everybody's different, and what their aims and what they want in life and what it is that they want to accomplish, and whether they go to school to make a lot of money or like me, go to school to help people.
Mm,
Um, it just varies. Like for me, I know that unfortunately the type of law that I am going to do and foresee myself doing for the rest of my life is not going to make me a lot of money. It's
mm,
not. When you are working with people who don't make a lot of money and you are trying to give those people opportunity, they don't have the money to feed into your organization. So you in turn are not going to make a lot of money, but you're going to be really happy because you're going to be helping a lot of people. So for me, that's always been my agenda, my initiative. And I've just realized and I just came to peace with that of just like, well, you know what? Like these law school loans are just a thing that's just going to be a part of my life. And like, I'm going to pay for them and God's going to provide for me and I'm going to still get the things that my heart desires. But like, it's going to be on a timeline, not like before 40, I'm going to do this or before, I'm 30, I'm going to buy a house or whatever. Like, it's just not going to be in the cards for me.
mm. Yeah,
But that's what I want to do, like I want to help people. And I know that that's not going to make me a millionaire. It's not. Um, but there's people who want to. Their agenda is to own, that apartment, is to move up and stuff. And like, if that's what they want, go ahead. Like that's what they want.
mhm.
But for me, like, yeah, I mean, my thing has never really been about making money. Although it's weird because obviously there's a balance because I still have to keep my lights on. I still have to feed myself. I still have to, when I have a family, like figure out, okay, how do I provide for them?
And the whole part of just looking presentable, right, to your clients, right? So it comes with like investing and apparel, investing in yourself in general, right? Having the equipment that's needed in order to be the best version of yourself as an attorney or a lawyer, right? So
Right. Yeah.
the attempts. I love your resilience because I hear the pass rate is very low.
Yeah.
Out of five.
Yeah. It's actually
And
so. No, no, I was just gonna say that. Yeah. So when I took it in February of 2020, I was like, dog, I did my thing on that. Like I passed. Yeah. Then I failed, and I found out our pass rate for that year or that exam was 26% of people passed. It was so bad. It was horrible. Oh man, it was that was a rough one. That was rough. That was really really rough. Yeah.
I bet.
But
20
yeah, and then I
is fucking low.
is
There's people who
low.
don't come back after the first attempt. They're like, "You know what? I'm already too deep into this pool, like, I gotta figure out another way." Like this.
Yeah, there's some people. There are some. There definitely are some who after the first time is rare because a lot of people don't pass their first time.
Mm,
Um, people pass at various rates. They really, really do. One of my good friends, who she went to LMU as well, she plays softball there. She graduated when I finished my first year,
mm,
and she passed with me. We passed together. So that's how many times she was taking it and studying and like all of that. And literally before the exam, she was saying like, Melinda, I don't know, like, dude, how do I know when it's time to just maybe this isn't it? Like, how do I know when it's time to throw in the towel? And so we very candidly had this conversation. I'm like, you know what, Jennifer, like, if you have anything left in the tank, take the damn exam.
mm.
Take it one more time. If it's in the tank, if it's a passion of yours, like, do it. Because we don't know what's going to happen. Like, and then if not, then we go from there. But
Mm.
like, take it. And so when she passed, like, it was just icing on the cake, on top of me passing myself. Like, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Fireworks everywhere. I can only
Yeah.
imagine. Ooh, and then so you told me that they congratulations for the thousandth time, by the way. But the whole part of them accusing you, you said something about chapter 6.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So our exam was online because
Mm,
of COVID. It was the first time that it's ever been online, etc. Because normally, you go and you take it in this giant convention center. It's very strict where, you go in, you have your plastic baggie, you only have, your pencil, your pen, if you're allowed to have it that day,
mm,
like, can't have your phone, like, all of this stuff, right? And so it was moved online and it was moved to October because normally it's February and July is the only time it's administered in the year. And so it was moved online in October, right? And like, so as you can imagine, they had all of these different rules that you have to have where it's like, so just the whole format was different, where it's like now you're only doing one essay at a time. You get, like time in between to use the restroom. You can't get up during the exam while you're actually taking the essay. People can't come in the room. Um, they did like the video, right? So like you have to be in the video of it, all this stuff. The bar basically did a super poor job of just really, I think, nailing down the details. So what they said is that they were going to prompt our exam through artificial intelligence, and then real people were going to go through and look at like if you got flagged for something, right? So if you moved suddenly or you got up or whatever. And so what I think happened is that the people that were flagged for whatever reason, they just got sent what is called a chapter 6 notice. And so basically that's them saying like, oh, hey, we think you did something you weren't supposed to do on the exam. So yeah, good luck. So they sent out these letters that said you got a chapter 6 notice. And then some of them said like what you did wrong. And so for mine, it said it was marked, there was like a check mark and it said other. And then it said couldn't see eyes. And I'm like, so what does that mean? Like, was there a glare in my glasses? Did the sun come in my eyes? Did I look somewhere off the page? Like, what the heck happened? You know? And so I'm like freaking out because I'm just like, okay, well, this is a super serious thing. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, where I was like, dude, I can't afford an attorney but I can't afford not to have an attorney. Hey,
Uh-huh.
Golden, I'm gonna go to your game.
What's up, buddy?
I, I'm on the earbuds. Let me take them off for a second.
Okay. Hey, buddy. How are you?
Say hi, Gold.
What sport is that?
What?
What sport?
What sport? Soccer. No, I mean baseball.
Oh, baseball. Okay. What position do you play?
First place.
First base. Okay. Nice.
Just happy to be playing with kids again, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
And my friend Felix from school. We're going. Come on.
Okay, I'll have to meet you there, baby. I'll be there soon.
We could
I'll be there it's at 11. I'll be there.
By the time you'll come back, it's gonna be done.
No, it won't.
nah. Well, you know what? We could definitely. I always tell the people that I interview or podcast with that for sure there has to be a part 2, part 3 to see where they are, with their life, career, and journey, right? But if you could wrap this up, and it's not for the kids. Is that your cousin?
That's my nephew.
Oh, your nephew. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
my oldest nephew.
The smile on their faces now that they get to play. I coach the little kids, and we had to constantly remind them not to hug each other or give each other high fives. But that's what as a coach, I love to see that, man. So it's like, we'll lose our point if we allow that. So it's one of those priceless moments that I get to witness as a coach. Like, I'm front seat,
Yeah.
Nobody could see this from me, but yeah. So with that, you got the chapter 6.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, so we got these notices and, gave us the whole chapter 6 thing and said it was because it was unable to see eyes. So I'm like, okay. And in the chapter 6, it said that I had 10 days to respond. And so I'm like, how am I supposed to respond to this when, what does that even mean? Mm-hmm. If you even think about it, like from what you guys teach us for law school and stuff, like that wouldn't even surpass, or like that wouldn't survive, basically like what you would call like, oh, like you're not giving me enough law here or enough information for me to even move forward. So it would just go away type of thing. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it was just one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, I really just can't afford a lawyer for this, but I can't afford not to have one. Like, because these things can be so severe that it can keep you from being an attorney forever. Because when you get one of these notices, it goes into what's called your moral character application. Because there's different things you have to do in order to become an attorney. The bar is just one of them. But your moral application is one. And it goes to that. And so it could potentially ruin it to the degree that they're like, nah, you ain't it. We don't want you in our field of law. Like, we don't want you in law. So sorry. And even other school or other states as well, they'll ask you about it. So that's why I say it was one of those things that's like, dude, like I have to get a lawyer for this. Like, what the heck? So luckily, and I was one of 2/3 of applicants who received that. And I didn't know that at the time, right? So when I received it, I was just like, you're kidding me. Like,
one of 2.
What?
Jesus.
No, 2/3.
2/3. Oh, because this is a
two-thirds of applicants.
Thing, right?
Yes, 2/3 of applicants. Yes. So there was a lot of us.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that at the time. So I'm thinking like, come on, God, like, what is this? Like, why does everything that I do always just seem to be an extra degree of difficult? Like, COVID wasn't enough, I guess. Like, having to take it during the pandemic wasn't enough. And there's so many things, because even with law school, like I didn't start off in Oregon. I started off here at the school, Chapa, and our school closed my first year, and they're like, "Oh, hey, by the way, we're closing."
Before COVID or during COVID?
No, this was way before COVID. This was my very first year of law school.
Jeez.
Yeah, and so that's how I went to Oregon.
That is random, but did they go bankrupt? Yeah. Did they get caught with something?
I mean, yeah, we don't really know like exactly, but yeah. obviously they weren't being very wise and diligent with the money aspect. And so the board, because I went to Whittier Law School,
Okay.
and so the board of the college came, and it was literally like a week before finals. And they were like, yeah, so we're closing the school down. We're doing a teach out though, so it should be okay. We'll see. Good luck.
What?
Peace. And basically that's how it went. And we were just like, okay. And so like everyone's freaking out, and we had finals the next like week, and like it was all bad. It was all bad. And I wasn't going to transfer at first because I was like, you know what? Like I got my grounding here. I just made, this competition team, and like I'm going to stay here. But then as time kind of went on, like right after finals and stuff, they were taking things out, just programs and things like that. And I was like, you know what, dude, like I'm paying way too much money not to have the full experience here.
Yeah.
Like, so at that point, I just applied to every school that was still open on the West Coast. And I got into Willamette, the school that I went to in Oregon. And I just kind of followed the money tree, because I got into some other schools too. But I was like, well, I'm just going to follow the money tree here. And I went up there, didn't know anybody, didn't even have an apartment, like nothing. And was like, well, you want this, so go ahead, go get it. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. That's why I say like my story is just like a journey for sure.
You for sure keep getting a bunch of surprises along the way. You
Yeah.
got Jeez. So you had an apartment. Did you find a job out there in the meantime? Did you take out another loan? Did you, if you don't mind me asking?
No. So that was like such a horrible part. And unfortunately, most of the time your internships aren't paid. A lot of time you're working for free, but you do it because obviously you need to start making a name for yourself in the legal community. And so your first year, you're not allowed to work. It's just like a policy that most, like every school has really, because they want you to just focus on the school aspect. So, but in the spring of your first year, you usually set up your internships for the summertime and then also for the fall when you start your second year. And so I had that set up here, obviously, but then I transferred, and most of those opportunities were already set up and kind of taken over there. So I'm like, okay, here we go. And my mom helped me a lot. She gave me like an allowance every month pretty much. And I just like became a master budgeter pretty much. I mean, I knew that was going to be it through law school anyway. So where it's like, okay, like this is what you have and this is how much you spent. And yeah, that's what you do. But then I ended up getting an internship or a job really because I was paid for it like midway through my first year. Or my first semester there, I mean, at Willamette. Stayed there for the duration of my 2L year. And then I started at a DA's office my third year. And I did that for an entire year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Busting moves.
Busting moves. Yes, because even the DA's office that I worked at, it was in Portland, which is an hour from where I lived. Of course, the local county DA's office that was literally across the street from me from school didn't hire me. It was the weirdest interview of my life. I was so like caught off guard. They're asking me questions like, so if you were in a reality TV show, what show would you be in? And I was like, what? Like, the weirdest, the most bizarre interview I've ever experienced to date. And I've had some weird ones. That was so weird. That was very, very strange. Because when you go in for an interview, you're very like, you have this mindset of like, I'm gonna, answer very eloquently. I have all these things in my like mind. What reality TV show would you be in? I don't even have Wi-Fi. Why are you asking me? Needless to say, I did not get that
Yo,
job.
you were getting casted for an agency, an acting agency, more than a.
I guess. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yo, it sounds
Oh my
wild.
God. The weirdest interview though. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what the heck? I think another question they asked me that I was just like, what? They're like, if you could commit a crime and get away with it, what crime would you commit? And it just threw me so off that I was just like my dumbass should have said rob a bank. Like, how easy is that?
Yeah.
But it just threw me off, especially because like the DA, I remember like, and it was like a group of like 5 DAs, and one of them was like, yeah, like kill someone, and I was like,
Yeah.
what? Like, she's like, yeah, like run someone over with your car, and I was like, what the? And I was like, I don't know. Yeah, it was just so bizarre. And I think I said something stupid like travel somewhere illegally or something dumb.
Oh,
It's
man.
just so dumb. Like
You
after
didn't
I was
know
like,
what
you
to
could have said
say. You know, it might have been a trick question.
it was very yeah, it was very strange. I could have just said rob a bank. Like how hard is
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
that?
I
So
felt
funny.
it too. Okay, so
Yeah.
obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, and you finally get a job, which is an hour away. You're still in school. You got a year left, or is it more than a year?
No, it was yeah, my final year left. Because I started right after my 2L year at the Multnomah DA's office, and I did a full year of that, and then graduation. And yeah,
Oh my God. Damn, something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. I think we never because we got a little bit off topic because we started talking about the chapter 6 stuff,
Yes.
um, and I never like wrapped up how that went. But no, so like I was saying that it was one of the things that you can't afford not to have an attorney, right? So I was blessed enough to find somebody who represented me pro bono. And so she wrote the letter for me. I drafted the letter and she, corrected it and stuff and sent it out on my behalf. Um, and then I think like maybe like 2 weeks from then, we received a letter basically said, haha, just kidding. We messed up, just kidding.
Wow.
But like all of the stress and all of just everything that happened for, and not necessarily for me, but I mean, just for everybody in general who went through that was like, really? Like, what the heck? Like, I was fortunate enough to find somebody who represented me for free, but something like that, I was getting quoted $3,000 to do. So imagine having to spend that money and then it's like, oh, well, are you guys going to give us that money back? Like, no, obviously they aren't, you know? And then, so I got that letter saying, haha, just kidding, pretty much. Then, like a week later, my results came out and I passed. And like, it was just,
Hey,
it was, it was, it was huge. It was just one
it
of
was
those
a lot
things
to
that were just
digest.
like,
You just beat a case before.
yeah. My brother was even
That's
joking and he
first.
was like, cheater this week, lawyer next week. Yeah, so it was wild. And then, I think like 10 days later or something like that, 2 weeks later, I got sworn in, and that very same week I was offered the job I have now. Um, so yeah, it was a lot. It was just like, okay, God, like you're moving very quickly.
Very quickly, very quickly. And I'm
Yeah.
sure right now you got a lot of things testing you, right? You reach the top of the hill only to find out that there's another mountain next to that hill. You're like, oh, okay. I'm sure there's a lot of you take a lot of pleasure being a lawyer attorney, right? What's a proper way of saying it? A lawyer is if you hire someone, attorney is if you have.
Both. I don't. They're both. Yeah.
Someone told me that people who are well off hire an attorney. It's the family attorney. And then people who are, don't have it like that, they go hire a lawyer. So it's a different way
Huh.
to
I've
say it.
never heard that. I don't know.
Like I thought they were both the same. And I'm like, okay.
I've never heard that. No.
Well, okay. So thank you. I was tripping. I was like, I think
No.
we got the same tomato. You feel me? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
stop trying to act smart around here. All right, slow your roll. we've gone through a lot. Just to sum up your experience with being a lawyer, right?
Yeah. So the work that I do right now is post conviction and criminal defense work. So anybody, I mean, we know what criminal defense work is, right? But like post conviction work is really just a whole nother beast because a lot of times it can be dealing with somebody who is wrongfully incarcerated or just dealing with somebody who has been mistreated or just somebody who has on all of these sentence enhancements, really is what they're called. So like I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with three strikes laws, right? And like what that has kind of looked like now. So there's many people in prison who are still dealing with that. But what we also have is those sentence enhancements, what I was talking about. And so a lot of people generally think that, oh, if you go to jail, like don't do the crime if you can't do the time type of thing, right? But what people don't realize is that there is so much time that is tacked on. So let's say like you are a young 16-year-old person who decided that you wanted to rob a bank or not rob a bank, just rob a liquor store or whatever, right? So now we're talking about the robbery and you'll go to prison for, let's say, you'll get a 7-year sentence for the robbery, right? But then you will get enhancements on top of that that were a gun enhancement. So you'll get that for 10 years. Then you'll also go, you look like a brown or black person. So then you're going to get a gang enhancement. So that's another 10 years.
Whoa.
So now you quickly went from 7 years to 27 years. And there back then, so like when we were younger, there were laws that those enhancements had to be on. Now, within the last couple of years or so, there is new law that has passed that
Yeah.
those enhancements don't have to, but the judge still has the ability to do that.
As soon as I heard seven
A
years,
total,
yeah, because I imagine maybe a year or two. See, I'm not too familiar with it, but I'm like, oh, okay, 7 is fair because he probably could have
yeah,
killed someone if he had a possession
right.
of a knife or gun.
And that is,
So
and that's the problem that we have because our society has voted, or not voted, but our society has said, like, yeah, that baseline term is that's legit, like that's what somebody should have to pay for in a sense. But then what people don't realize is that we have these enhancements that go on. So now somebody is there for a robbery, the first time robbery or whatever, for 27 years. And yeah, and there's so many cases like that. And that's just one variation of it. Um, and it's amazing to see. I have clients, who are my age and have been in prison since they were 16. And it's just really difficult not to think how different our lives are,
mm,
and it really begs the question of, okay, at what point do we say like we are violating the Eighth Amendment? At what point are we saying this is cruel and unusual punishment? Or at what point are we saying like, hey, this is even like a double jeopardy type of argument, right? Where it's like, well, we're punishing you for this, but then we're also going to punish you for this, this, and this, even though it's the same from the exact same event. It's like just this creativity that we see with DAs and judges and stuff, and even legislation, that it's like, how many ways can we punish somebody for one thing that they did? And so that's what you see. And that's what leads to all of this mass incarceration, right? And what we don't realize is that how much it costs us to pay for taxpayers to keep somebody incarcerated.
mm,
It's just it's incredible. It's just like, man, what the heck are we doing? So a lot of the work that I do is trying to get those enhancements off. Um, yeah, it's it's tough work in the sense that there really is no avenue,
mm,
no legal avenue for it. It's really having to ask a DA to then ask a judge to resentence. And it's a whole new like area too. And there's different avenues, but it's a whole new area of law that people are really trying to like figure out in a sense too. And especially with this, we have this social movement that is kind of pushing it that direction. So it's very new and evolving, that's for sure.
Jeez, I had no idea
Yeah,
that
it's a
existed.
lot.
Señorita, we need a chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I want to
I
hear
know.
about,
I feel like we barely kind of just like touched on a lot of things and didn't really like. I feel like I wasn't able to give you like the full kind of details of anything specific.
It's not fair, but my sister was telling me the other day, I like what you're doing, but people tune out after 5 minutes. I'm like, it's not meant for the people for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I
It's
don't.
meant for
Yeah,
people who want to listen to that topic. If there's someone, I interviewed someone who went pro in soccer. So if you want to listen to what he went through, then you stick around. If not, maybe it's not
yeah,
for you. You know,
yeah,
that's what it's all about. Like, yeah, but they plan it out for 2 hours and they do a sick ass 10-minute video. I commend them on that. But there's so much to talk about. I'm not sure if 10 minutes does enough justice. So
yeah.
objection, Your Honor.
Objection. Ay.
One of my favorite movies off topic is Liar Liar, Jim Carrey. Oh my God. I love that guy. That
In
movie.
ages. Ay, ay,
Oh,
ay. He
man,
is such a good. He's great. I
stole
don't
the
think I've
show.
seen anything that I've not enjoyed him in.
Yeah, he stole the show with that. Another one is huge, Robert Downey Jr. I'm sure you've seen The Judge.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Oh,
Yeah,
man, masterpiece.
it is a good one.
It's a good one. Some people love those Netflix
Yeah, no, a lot of
murder.
people do, but for me,
Yeah,
I'm just like, this ain't even real life. Okay, I
yeah.
do something else.
No, but what about that one where that guy got wrongfully convicted? Making of a Murder. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen that.
Came
No,
out in
no.
like 2017. It's
Okay. Okay.
very
Actually,
good.
no. One of a movie that I really, really love because I just love the book is Just Mercy.
That one's good.
Yeah, that's a
They
great
threatened
one.
him in the beginning. Yeah, the movie.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's a
Oh,
great,
that
great
one.
movie.
That's on Amazon Prime, if I'm not mistaken. That one is good.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because the book is incredible, and that lawyer, he's gold. He's gold.
These are
Brian Stevenson is his name.
these are real heroes out there.
Yeah.
Those are real heroes out
So
there.
that one. That's what I should have said.
Just Mercy, Michael B. Jordan. That's a good one. That's a very good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look at
Yeah.
that one again. But all right, señorita.
Okay.
Un gran
Talk to you
abrazo.
later.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.